My friends used to dare me to visit the house at the end of the cul-de-sac. In fact, everybody was daring everybody to do it. I remember the look on their faces, how scornful they looked at my refusal, how they all called me chicken and teased me endlessly. Not anymore. They've all done it and they all regret it, and now they discourage me from visiting that house. The old house at the end of Singing Court, street number 2104. People were dared to spend a night in that abandoned old house, and of course, everybody came back just fine. Afterwards, they were different, scared out of their minds, convinced that they'd never set foot near Singing Court again. A simple high school joke gone completely wrong. I know people always do stupid things like this, and a few of them come back with ghost stories to liven things up, get everybody guessing, make people believe crazy things. But this isn't the average haunted house. Everybody who came back from the house swore there really was a ghost who had almost gotten them and they barely escaped. Try the bet. You enter the house, you hear the strange sounds. The ghost finds you. You run and you tell your friends and they laugh. They try it for themselves. They never laugh at you again. That's what happened to some of my close friends at school, if you could call them that anyways. It was high school and a lot of your close friends in high school are really just the crowd you fit in with, you know? I was like that. My name is Cameron and I used to go to South Cadence High School. A pretty normal high school. Bullies, jocks, and month-long relationships. You name it. I was pretty natural too. I was tall and I had short brown hair and I played football. Except people always said I was a little unique. I was nicer. I paid more attention to people's pain, their feelings, their stories. Maybe that attribute is why I did what I did. I got really curious about all the stories. I'm a sensible guy and ghost stories just don't really add up to me. There's no such thing as ghosts, I always thought. So like a fool, I eventually brought up the subject at lunch one day. I said it to my buddies. You know what? I'll do it. Instantly, Trey nearly flipped out. No way, man. We were wrong before. Don't go there. And Josh laughed. It'll be your funeral, man. Don't you remember? Everybody acts the exact same way when they come out of there. And Trey continued breathlessly. And the stories are the same. A ghost in the house, in the yard, on the driveway. Somewhere in there and it almost gets us. Oh, come on. Nobody ever stuck around just for a moment. Nobody ever tried to see who it was. It's probably somebody playing a prank, don't you think? It can't be a prank. And Trey answered, shaking his head. Not the way it happens. I know how it happens. You told me 80 or 90 times now. It gets all cold, a weird ringing sound in the air. Wah wah wah. You ain't listening, man. You could be the very first one that thing finally gets. Gets? I snorted. As in kills. Of course, that's what some might say about me now. Others might say I was stolen or trapped forever. But that's not how I see it. Let me roll back a bit though. Well, as you expect, my friends all kept trying to convince me to stay away from 2104 Singing Court. The more they did, the more curious I got. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I was definitely going to visit the place. Tonight. It was Friday night, the best night. Against my friend's wishes, I decided that it was happening. So that evening, after I and my parents ate dinner, I watched the news and did all the other boring stuff that parents will do, they went off to bed. I kissed my mother goodnight, and then I tiptoed upstairs, picked up my spare backpack I had filled with little gear, and I snuck out. I made it easily to 2104 Singing Court in no time. The road was less than a 5-minute walk away. When I got there, the house looked just like it always did. Old and peeling and yet sturdy. Not much creaking and cracking. You could feel safe under the roof in a storm. But tonight, something was different. I had never actually seen the house at night. Was that it? I wasn't sure, but something under the house seemed to draw me in further. That night, I finally crossed a line I'd never crossed before. I started up the hill driveway. The door opened easily. There was no lock on it. I entered right into a small living room. Taking out my lantern and switching it on, I saw a pile of sticks in the corner closest to me, undoubtedly from the other visitors. I turned into a small hallway. There wasn't a single cobweb around. I guessed at the time that everybody had just knocked them down. I know different now, of course, but at the time, I was still naive about the whole thing. The next room was the kitchen. It looked like an ordinary old kitchen in the darkness, just without anything set up on the counter. And there was even an old refrigerator sitting against one wall, with a stove on one side of it and a microwave secured above. Too bad there's no power. I could have brought some reheatable food if this house was still connected to the wires. I'd have to make do with the sandwiches that I'd packed. I chuckled to myself. Everybody was right about this place. Sure is spooky. I teased the house. There wasn't anything interesting in here yet. And then suddenly, I felt something odd. It passed by so quickly, I couldn't even tell what it was until after it had gone. For a moment, I stood there wondering, and then I felt it again. The floor, it was vibrating. It felt like somebody had just switched it on. I wasn't sure what it was. The vibrations crept up my legs and I shivered, taking a step back. And then the noise came, blasting from out of nowhere, right in front of me. The ringing. I reached into my pocket and I yanked out my screeching cell phone. I swiped the caller icon and I held it to my ear. "Trey, you scared me to death," I cried in a harsh whisper. "If anybody sees me in here, they'll call the... Dude, I just had to know that you actually did it. You're in there right now?" "Yeah, I'm here. This place is boring, man. It's a little cold around here. I'm starting to think I might just take off in a few minutes." "Good, man. Get out of there. Don't stay. You really should leave. I mean, like right now." "I'm not falling for it. Nothing's trying to attack me in here. Unless the whole school is in on some joke, I don't get it. You're all delusional." "I don't care what you're thinking. Just get out of there." "See ya, man." I hung up with him still protesting on the other end, and then I started to laugh quietly. Imagine, everybody's scared of this. Of what? Of shadows. There is nothing moving here but shadows. Everything else was deathly still. I looked around the kitchen one last time and then made my way back to the living room where I had put my bag. I changed my mind at that moment. I'd stay a bit. I had brought snacks after all and a book to pass the time. Mainly I just wanted to stay long enough to encounter this ghost so I could tell everybody how crazy they were. About an hour. That's how long it usually took for them to leave. So I decided that I would stay 2 hours. And if nothing happened, then for certain I'd be going then. And no reason to say otherwise. I opened the compartment with the sandwiches and I pulled out the little lunch bag I'd packed them in. I stopped short as I unzipped it. There were 2 sandwiches. I had packed 3 in there. But I shook away the strange thoughts, realizing I'd probably left the last one on the counter at home. I'd get it later tonight after I went back. I pulled out one of the sandwiches, my favorite kind. Mayo with cheese and cold turkey. Frank's hot sauce, onions, and spicy peanut sauce. Yeah, I know it sounds weird. Sue me. I took a bite and I opened up my favorite classic, Summer of the Monkeys. I had just gotten past the 4th chapter when I started hearing the sounds. Real sounds this time. Scratches against the side of the house from the backyard. I wasn't afraid. I picked up a stick from the corner pile, switched on my lantern, and I headed slowly for the back door. I wasn't scared, but I also wasn't an idiot or a daredevil. I held the stick out right in front of me, and I moved about 2 miles an hour. This could be anything, maybe even a lurking animal. I had to be ready to defend myself. I swung open the back door. Instantly, the sounds grew louder. They were right outside of the door, just around the edge of the door jamb. If I took one more step, the thing making the noise would be instantly to my left. I took a deep breath and my heart, I realized, was actually beating a little fast. I turned left, sidestepped out of the door, and I raised the stick. An instant before I saw what was there, the sounds faded and the tiny little white light that had apparently been there moments ago faded as well, just like a flashlight shutting off. But even as I panted hard, struggling to keep a cool head, I realized that there was nothing in front of me. Nobody was hiding in the darkness, having just turned off the light. There was absolutely nothing. "Alright, that's it," I called out to the darkness. "Get out here." Nothing stirred. Now I wasn't only scared, but I was angry too. I stepped quickly down the few crumbly brick stairs and I took several steps out into the backyard. I heard it again. A scratching noise. But now it was more like a shuffling sound. Not the sound of fingers scratching against the side of a house. More like footsteps, several feet out of my lantern's range of sight, padding softly around the grass. Around. And then it stopped and it started again, and this time they were padding towards me. And the ringing sound started up slowly. The footsteps were close by, getting nearer, right in front of me, but the person or the thing wasn't close enough for my light to see them yet. "Hello?" I whispered, no longer feeling brave in the slightest. I saw something small floating in the air in front of me, just a few feet away. After a moment, it came just a little closer. I realized that it was fingers. A hand. A small hand reaching out for me, slowly getting closer. It was so pale. The ringing sound grew louder. It changed tones, shifted up and down almost as if, could it be? No way. I felt the sudden urge to throw my lantern at this figure, turn around and run back and as fast as I could, snatch up my bag and get out of there. But I told myself that I wasn't like the others. They'd always told me that I was different, and now this was the time to prove it. I wasn't going to be frightened by something like this. I couldn't run away. I had to figure out what it was. If I didn't, I'd spend the rest of my life wishing I'd waited just one more minute, wondering forever, and it would destroy me not knowing. "Hello?" I called, my voice a tiny squeak. I felt silly sounding like that, but under the circumstances, I'm sure it was understandable. The ringing slowly shifted tones, the pitch wavering up and down. It grew louder. Was it really? It was. It wasn't ringing, it was a voice. A singing voice. The voice of a young girl. La 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 la. My voice caught in my throat. Not fear. It wasn't fear this time. I wanted to cry. She sounded so sad, so dejected, as if she were crying for help and nobody would listen. The fingers slowly lowered. The padding sound began to back away. Everybody else ran away by now, I realized, and I haven't run yet. I'm surprised it. The sound shuffled away slowly, and the soft singing voice began to fade away into a shrill ring again as it slowly left me. "Wait!" I cried. The sound stopped receding and then the voice came back. La 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 la. Such beautiful sounds. It slowly came closer. This time it didn't have to reach out. I raised my hand to it, and after a few seconds of hesitation, I felt the softness of delicate fingers sliding into mine, another hand gently gripping mine. I held it, and then the rest of the ghost came into view. A girl about my age, almost as tall as I was, but she was like nobody that I'd ever seen before. She was so pale, so beautiful. Her eyes were blue and shiny, and her hair was long and white blonde. And as the breeze blew it gently towards me, it tickled my face with the softness of silk. Whoa. She was already that close. She stared at me, gazing into my eyes as if studying me. But she looked so scared. Was she scared? It's not like I was going to hurt her. Could anybody even hurt her? Please, she whispered, her voice coming with the wind and just a soft. What? I croaked, trembling all over. Please don't run away, she pleaded, and then she started to cry. Please. And suddenly, just like that, I understood everything. I gently squeezed her hand in mine. Never. I promised her in just a soft whisper. Her tears still flowed, but she managed to stop crying just for a moment and looked at me again. She really wasn't sure if I was going to run away or not. After all, hadn't everybody else already run off by now? I'll run away, and when all she needed was the presence of another human being, somebody to talk to, someone that would listen to her. You're different, she managed through her tears. I know, I responded. Nobody else had considered she might be more than just a haunting phantom. Everybody always did say I was different, kind, always there to listen to and sympathize with someone's pain. Even with the ghostly terror she had initially given me, I realized that it was just a test, just to make sure that I was the right one. If I could stay there through the fear, then I certainly could stay forever. Forever? Yeah, I know. You probably don't understand. But the way she begged to me, I really couldn't resist. Please, stay with me, she pleaded. And the way she begged me, and the way she pleaded with those eyes, I knew she did mean forever. Always, I promised her. She fell sobbing into my arms and laid her head on my shoulder. I held her, comforting through her tears, her pain, and when she finally stopped crying, she looked up at me. Her face was tear-stained, but she was beautiful no matter what. She held my hand and slowly led me further into the backyard, further away from the rest of the world. As I left with her, I kept thinking about the other guys at my high school. I remember their scornful, laughing faces, how they teased me, called me afraid. Yes, I remember them laughing. Then I remember them looking much different, stone cold and terrified. But not once had they looked sympathetic for the ghost, and they weren't like me. They had always told me that. To this day, I still don't regret that I was different from all of them, because I cared while they simply ran from fear, because they just didn't know. They say she was a ghost, a scary thing trying to get them, but all she wanted was the right person. And now she knows that she found that person. She found me. And nobody else ever knew what had happened to me. Nobody knew where I'd gone, why I'd disappeared. I don't care. They ran from her. They all ran from Sammy. That's her name. Because none of them knew, poor fellas. They didn't know. They didn't know that she was just lonely.